Okay. I would like to call the regular council meeting of August 9th to order. First item is approval of the agenda. As we have, yes, Councillor Sproul, your mic's off.
Yeah.
To make the motion to approve the agenda, the late items.
Yes, I make.
Seconder.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
Seconder. All in favor? Carried. Next, we have receipt of committee minutes.
Receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. No delegations, no unfinished business. Councillor Brown, you had your hand up?
No, sorry. Both.
Okay.
I was still stuck there.
Okay. Correspondence. Recommend that council receive the correspondence from Lush Valley Food Action Society, Comox Valley Food Policy Council requesting the Village of Cumberland's endorsement of a universal school food program.
Move receipt.
Move receipt, yeah.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. So I did have the opportunity to talk to Marita Prato, the Executive Director of Lush Valley Food, and got a little bit more information concerning the proposals. I was fine with number 1 and number 2 to endorse the efforts of the Coalition for Healthy School Food to advocate for a universal cost shared healthy school food program. And I was also okay with the Village of Cumberland call for the federal government to begin to implement a universal cost shared healthy school food program for K-12 students. The one that had a little bit of concern for me was the one of resources to the program and committing to a program. And after speaking with her, I had no concerns whatsoever. Because we have such a wonderful program with the community school, and we've actually done a pilot project in that respect. So we know it works in the village. And my concern is that we would put money into other, they would use some of our funds to go into the other communities when our own community CCSS needs the extra funding, if there's more funding that they get available. And Marita made assurances that they would add to our program. They wouldn't want us to hurt our program at all in any way. So I was really pleased to hear that. I think it's very well worthwhile. I know I've talked to Island Health about our program. They think it is absolutely amazing program. Fits the community very well. I've also talked to Gord Johns on numerous times about our program, and he's very proud of it and speaks very highly of our program. So if anybody else would like to add anything, they're more than welcome to. Add any questions? Yes, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, so this is actually correspondence from the Food Policy Council. There's been some confusion as it circulates through the local government, but it is from the Food Policy Council. And I think it's great. And I have a motion ready if everybody's in favor.
Okay, just one other thing. I did talk to Sue Lovelace at the CCSS because they weren't acknowledged in receiving this, and she hadn't heard of it, and so she read it after I gave it to, showed her where it was, and she fully supports it, and I'm glad to hear that. Okay, Councillor Brown.
Jesse's waiting.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my support for this, and just wanted to highlight one of the paragraphs that was in the letter talking about how Canada is the only G7 country without a national school food program. and that we rank 37 out of 41 wealthy countries when it comes to children's food security and nutrition. So I think that's a pretty abysmal record, and I think we can do much better. And this letter has also gone out to the other local governments. It will be on the agenda at the regional district tomorrow night as well.
And Courtney has already approved theirs support. Yes,
Yeah, and so has the school district.
Yes.
Great. So I'd like to move that council authorize staff to endorse the efforts of the BC Coalition for Healthy School Food to advocate for a universal cost shared healthy school food program via the endorsement form in the letter included in the letter from the Food Policy Council. And two, that we work with CCSS and the Food Policy Council to write a letter to the Prime Minister requesting the Government of Canada implement a universal cost shared healthy school food program for all K-12 students in the country. Thirdly, to write the Premier and the Minister of Education requesting that the province of BC commit to increasing investment in a universal cost shared healthy school food program for all K-12 students in the province. And fourthly, to continue to support Cumberland Community School Society in their efforts to continue to offer a healthy lunch program at Cumberland Community School.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the correspondence from P. Gillian MP regarding Bill M. 48 anti-hate crimes.
Receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Would someone like to speak with this one? I think it's very worthwhile. I think we need this for sure in our legislation, and because of the increase in hate crimes and incidents. And I think, unfortunately, we've noticed that during COVID, and we need to act and make this happen. So would Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I definitely support this as well. And there has been a definite increase in racism in our country. I just have a little bit of concern about when they talk about banning of symbols, because I think there are religious symbols that can get confused with, like the swastika. I believe it's like also a Buddhist religious symbol. So I'm just not sure how they'll write the legislation to account for things like that. But that was my only concern with the letter.
Okay. Anyone else? No. So does somebody want to make a motion then? No? Okay. Councillor Kettler?
Yep, sure. I'll move that. We have the endorsement paragraph, which is on behalf of the Village of Cumberland, Mayor and Council, endorse MP Peter Julian's private member's motion M84 anti-hate crimes and incidents and his private member's bill C313 banning symbols of hate act.
Again.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Next, that council received the correspondence from K. Wiseman Weiser Projects regarding 3339, 3341, and 3345 2nd Street Affordable Housing Development.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. As you see before you, we all were aware that they did not receive funding from BC Housing. So they've been proactive in searching out other avenues to find funding. And so they have spent quite a bit of sum of money, the Transition Society, on having a successful application. And so they still want to move ahead with it. And so they're asking the village to look at possible ways of solving the issue concerning the lease agreement. So if there's any questions or concerns or comments, please bring them forward. Yes, Councillor Brown, and then Councillor Kettler. We'll go around the table.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm confused about the land title. I thought we had done that in preparation for this project, that it had been transferred into the village's name. That's not the case. Okay, so that's disappointing that we missed that. So I definitely agree with transferring the title to the village and setting up a long-term lease. I wonder, I don't quite understand the access agreement. I understand that's access along the edge of the VHA property. Can somebody speak to that?
Is Courtney?
Yes. Thanks. Yeah, so the access easement is for a driveway access, but it's not from a public road. It would be from the VHA driveway per se. So that's with VHA right now to approve.
Okay. Yeah, and then the only other thing I would add is that I'd be happy to consider a tax reduction for them.
Councillor Sproul?
Well, I'm happy to hear about the solution to access to the building, how we're working with VHA, but I wasn't clear. I thought that the ownership of the land had moved to us, so I wasn't clear on that. I really don't know. I don't think any of us know quite how this is going to go. So I think I'll just wait and see what comes forward. The question is, who is going to manage the project? Is that what I understand?
No, that's already been decided.
Yeah,
It's
it
gone
is
to
going to
Dawn
be
and the
D2D
Transition
and
Society.
transition. Okay.
Yes. The real issue is the land. And we had Island Health was willing to sign a lease agreement with the two society, with Dawn Transition Society, but it didn't come about. And sorry, it was BC Housing and Island Health that were going to sign the lease agreement, and it did not come about. Okay.
Right. Okay.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yeah, I guess I'm just one of the other councillors who's a little unclear. Reading that through this, I didn't know the lease agreement was even an issue. I thought that was long with dealt, and so hearing that's one of the reasons is very disconcerting. Sorry, so am I to understand that VHA, the access through the VHA driveway, that's waiting still to go through them? Was that one of the holdups? Is that? So isn't this an intake every year? Am I correct in that with the, or is that just this year? I thought this was there's another intake for this grant next year as well.
18 months.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
Yes. Yes. Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, so just a bit of the background, that this property was promised to the village many moons ago. And if it was not used for health purposes, island health purposes, which it wasn't. And so this was part of the homelessness and affordable housing search for land within Cumberland, that this document was dug up for basically title of this land to return to the village if not used by Island Health. But it took years of talking to Island Health to even get to a place where we could agree that this should be used for affordable housing. And it was felt, I think at the time, that it would be a much longer process if we did transfer the title back to the village rather than let Island Health hold the deed still, but still have the same applicants and management of the site. Everything would be the same, except Island Health would hold the title, continue to hold the title, just in for expediency, basically, because it would have taken Island Health a long time to just get to that point. So, so I think that was the thought process. We wanted to make this intake, and we didn't hear anything back that this would be an issue. And there was lots of back and forth between Island Health and the Transition Society and BC Housing. So I'm not sure where it kind of went wrong. I have a feeling that it's not just about what they had said here, but also about the size of the building, because a building in Courtenay that had the same size, but agreed to basically double their size, ended up with the funding. So I think it was more about economy of scale and Cumberland wanting to keep a certain size within our community, and those factors, as well as them saying that there's complications with Island Health being the title holder. So yeah, but we're continuing to look for other funding options. Mayor Baird and I had a discussion with MP Gore Johns about different funding options provided by the federal government. So, and of course, yes, there is the BC Housing intake again in 18 months, but we're certainly not giving up on this. It's a really great project. Transition Society has worked really hard and put a lot of money in, and there's a long list of people that need this housing and are really desperate to get into this housing. So we can't let up on this. So thanks.
Yeah, and one of the questions I had was, would it be faster for Island Health to sign the agreement with the Transition Society still, or would it be more expedient for the village to sign the lease agreement? And I think they were looking into that to see which one could be done quicker, and whether the village would want to hold the lease. And I personally don't have a problem with holding the lease if that's what the decision is. I think it would be really well, because they are not using the land for any healthcare, then the land is actually supposed to revert to the village. But then that's in the agreement. So yeah, but what's entailed in doing that is what we need to know. Yes, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, so thank you for the clarification. And so there's clearly not enough funding at this point. Was there some federal funding that we were looking into, or is there potential for that happening?
Yes. They feel that they could do it with the federal funding.
Okay, thank you.
And they were actually hoping that they could get the application in before an election, but I don't think they can. They can't make the timeline. But we'll see. We'll just they'll keep on working on it. They were waiting tonight to see how we felt about it and whether we as the village would proceed. Yes. And I don't have any problem with any of the requests that they have asked for in looking at a tax incentive and doing that, because we are actually giving them quite a substantial amount of money in the property itself. So yeah, that needs to be taken into consideration also. So it says here, so we need to ask staff to bring back a report concerning our next steps in making this happen. So okay. If that's what you would like to do, Councillor Ketteler, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I can make the motion if you like.
Yes.
The council directs staff to prepare a report on the request from K. Wiseman Wiser Projects regarding 3339, 3341, and 3345 Second Street affordable housing development.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, reports that council received development permit 2694 Penrith Avenue.
Move receipt.
Seconded. All in favor? Carried.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. So my first report is development permit for a new ADU at 2694. So this has come before you once and then gone to the APC and is now back to you for decision. So the initial architectural elevations had included a large blank wall facing the lane behind Penrith, which was the north elevation on the drawings. And staff felt that the materials didn't reflect the principal dwelling unit close enough. So before the APC meeting, the agent provided us with new elevations that address these issues. And on the updated drawings on the north elevation, you can see that they've added 2 windows that are along the staircase as you go up. And then they've also added a trellis with climbing foliage, which will also work towards mitigating the large blank wall on the lane. Additionally, the building materials were adjusted to more closely reflect the primary dwelling, which they also provided graphics for in the updated drawings.
Questions from council members? Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I just had a question about the security amount. It seems to be a lot more than we normally have.
Yes.
What reason is that?
They have a very extensive plan. I did look at that because it is, yes, higher than usual. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find it in front of me here. I think it includes, they're doing a lot of hardscaping from the front of the property to the rear of the property, as well as removing the entire garage structure and then resurfacing that area. So I think there's some sort of larger area projects in comparison to some of the other ADUs that we see.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you. I have a question about it says the charging station is located at the front. And so now we're looking at parking in the back and parking in the front and parking on the easement and all that good stuff. So I'm wondering where staff might consider relocating it to. Would it be to the alley?
It'd be to the rear parking spots they're putting in. Yeah, this was the first time a situation like this has come forward where they already have the electrical vehicle charging station. But just because of the nature of Penrith, the old part of Cumberland, for the new development, we'll require it off of the back in the rear parking, so that doesn't cross into the public right of way.
Yeah, so that's a concern to me because in these old parts of Cumberland where the frontage is not substantial enough to have parking because it was built before cars were a thing, that frontage is part of the history and the character of those neighborhoods, and people are necessarily parking in the easement. So relocating it back to the alley is encouraging alley use, where I think our community is more in favor of keeping alleys as greenways as much as possible instead of turning them into roadways by encouraging access from the alley. So so I think it's fine to leave if they've already, especially if it's already there, let's have them use it in place and not go to that expense to move it to the alley, would be my thought on that.
Yes.
I think in this case, it does sort of work. I know it's the primary homeowners that are parking there and charging the electric vehicle that they already own. So we wouldn't make them remove it, but we also can't encourage crossing the public right of way. I mean, there isn't a sidewalk there now, but if there ever was one added, then we couldn't have the cord across the sidewalk. But if they have one at the back as well, then potentially the tenant in the new ADU could have an electric vehicle as well, and they wouldn't be parking on the street.
Okay, so we're not
Yeah.
asking them we're not moving it, we're moving the new one, the
I
non-existent
think
one.
so. Yeah, I think so. Yes. Because
Okay.
they're currently, there is one on site, but we don't want to encourage parking in the right of way for an EV plug-in. So yeah, we'd request an additional, I should say, at the back.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So what is your pleasure, council?
I'll move that council approve the development permit 2021-04 DP for the property described as Lot 3, Block 4, DL 21 Plan VIP 5222694 Penrith Avenue.
Seconded. All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received development permit 2601 Dunsmuir Avenue.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
All right, so the second of the 3 ADUs tonight. So this development permit is for 2601 Dunsmuir Avenue. Once again, it has come before you previously, then gone to the APC for comment, and is now back before you for your final decision. At the June 14th council meeting, when you first saw this application, it was identified that 2 of the proposed parking spaces on the site plan crossed into the public right-of-way on Dunsmuir. So the applicant has amended the application to ensure that the required number of parking spaces are located entirely within the property boundaries. And in the site plan, they provided more parking than they need. They're just showing guest parking, which isn't technically required. So they do have the 3 required parking spaces, 2 for the main dwelling and 1 for the accessory dwelling unit on the property. So they amended the plan to show that.
Councilor Brown?
Hi.
Hi.
So again, the parking's in the rear. I didn't on this one see, are we not requiring the electric charging station for this one?
Yeah, they have a proposed one at the front
Okay.
on I think it's the second plan, not the one with the landscaping on it, the second page. They have the proposed EV plug-in off the front of the main dwelling.
Okay, sorry, I missed that.
Oh, all good.
Yeah, and then just again that we've got parking in the lane, which I'm happy to allow, but don't want to pay for snow plowing back there.
Yeah.
And so that would be either accessing from the laneway to the alley, or from Sutton to the alley. In either case, there wouldn't be clearing.
Correct. Yeah, they are aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your pleasure?
I'll move that council approve the application 2021-05 DP for development permit on property legally described as Lot 40, DL 24 Plan VIP 13640, 2601 Dunsmuir.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the report development permit 4723 Cumberland Road.
Proceed.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
All right, so this is the third and final ADU for the evening. This development permit application is for 4723 Cumberland Road. So once again, this came before you June 14th, then to the APC for comment, and now is back to you. There were no changes made since the first meeting, and from APC, they didn't have any suggestions. So as is before you.
Any questions, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I know we've talked about these rather large properties and access to and from Cumberland Road, and I note that this application has incorporated a turnaround on the property, and I wonder if we should be requiring a turnaround on those properties as a requirement of adding density to them, because we don't want people backing out onto Cumberland Road. I don't think anyone is backing out onto Cumberland Road right now, but it's possible that that they could be creating that in the future, and that would be obviously a concern.
I can make a comment. I think it would be a case by case basis. I did a site visit with the manager of operations, and he had a pretty thorough look at the sight lines. And because generally we only allow one access. I can't believe there's a certain frontage width, and then you're allowed a certain number of driveways. I can't remember. Maybe Courtney can remember off the top of her head, but I believe most lots are only permitted one unless under, special circumstance and there's a site visit and it's deemed to be safe. So, but we definitely could look in it in a case by case basis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a question? No? So someone like to make the motion?
I'll move that council approve the application for a development permit on the property described as Lot A DL 24, Plan EPP 80219, 4723 Cumberland Road.
Seconder,
Second that.
second, and all in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive development variance permit 2814 Dunsmuir Avenue.
Receive.
Move receipt.
Seconder, all in favor? Carried.
All right, so this is my final report of the evening. This is the development variance permit for 2814 Dunsmuir Avenue, and is a referral to the Advisory Planning Commission, or a request to referral. So the subject property is currently under active subdivision with an existing small dwelling on proposed Lot A with frontage onto Dunsmuir Avenue. The applicant is proposing to move an existing dwelling onto the proposed new lot and modify the structure to increase the size of the footprint, specifically to add a mudroom and entrance space off of the front. The property is zoned R1A, which requires principal buildings to have a minimum rear setback of 4.5 meters or 14.8 feet, and a minimum front setback of 3 meters or 9.8 feet. The applicant is seeking to vary the rear setback to 3.51 meters and the front setback to a minimum of 2 meters. The proposed structure is still under the permitted 40% lot coverage.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, so the originally the lot would have fronted onto Dunsmuir, but it's been subdivided now to front onto 6th Street, which now creates the back of the lot being what would have been the side lot, right? Is that making sense so far? Are you with me?
Maybe.
So from the neighbor's perspective,
yes.
Previously this was the side setback, which would have been less than the back rear setback, is it? That's what I'm trying to figure out, whether it's more or less than it what it would.
Sorry, I'm following. It's actually more because a side setback would be 1.5 meters. So
and the rear setback is
4.5 is what it requires. So it would still be over the minimum for a side setback.
And they're asking for a reduction to
a 1 meter reduction, so to 3.5 meters.
Okay, so it'll still be wider if we give the variance. It's still wider than what it would have been had it been that same lot that fronted onto Dunsmuir and it was a side lot versus a rear lot. Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I'm happy with that. My concern is we've given a variance on the front lot, and now it's for the rear. Now what is now the rear of the front lot. And so for anyone to do anything with that house, they're going to have to pick it up and move it or demolish it. And it is part of a rather contiguous row of similar houses. So providing some character features, but obviously not protected in any way. And so would it come to council if someone decided to purchase that front lot with the house on it and demolish it? And then, because I suspect that what will happen is someone will buy it, pick up the house, move it forward, which then they'll ask for a variance on the front, which I would be fine with because I like front setbacks to be lower, but just wanting to find wanting to know whether or not it would come to us if they were going to tear down the house, I guess.
No. So unless I don't think any of the houses have heritage protection at all. I don't even think in the VCMU 1 or the heritage downtown core. If they were to add on to the structure, because I know it is quite a small house, as it is, because I think there was a variance for the rear setback, I think, to be under the 4.5. So they can't currently add on to the non-conformity, I believe. So they'd have to apply for another variance if they wanted to extend the width of the house on the lot, but not if they add on to the front. So it would just be if they're adding on to that side that has the variance, I believe. Courtney, you can.
Yeah, and then if they wanted to move it, like, because right now it's literally sitting on the property line of the other lot. So in order for anyone to conceivably access that, they're going to have to move the house, right? So that would come to us because right? No,
Only if it's not in compliance. So if they were requesting to be something that a different setback that wasn't in compliance with R1A, then they would have to apply for variance and it would come back to you. But if they were actually moving it forward and then it complied with the rear setback, then there'd be no reason to come back. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So members of council, any other questions? Comments? No. So would someone like to make the motion?
I'll move the council for the application 2021-08 TV for a development variance permit on the property described as Lot 1, Block 27, DL 21, Plan VIP 522C, 2814 Dunsmuir Avenue to the Advisory Planning Commission.
Second,
all in favor? Carried. Next, we have 6.5, but I am going to remove myself from this discussion as I have two family members that own cabins in this project. So Councillor Spruill will be taking over this portion. So have a good meeting, and Rachel can take me out now.
Okay, sorry, it was plain. That council received the report application for an official community plan amendment and rezoning of recreational cabin property at Comox Lake. Do I read all the recommendations one by one? Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Good.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll introduce the report. So the purpose of the report is to provide a quick overview of a application received by the village to rezone and also for an OCP amendment of the cabin property on the east side of Comox Lake, which is the Cumberland end of the lake. As you probably all know, the cabins have been on that property for probably close to 100 years, some maybe longer. They were built prior to any zoning bylaw being in place, so they are non-conforming. Under the current zoning bylaw, the cabins would not be permitted. That number of cabins would not be permitted. There would just be one single family dwelling on that property permitted. The cabin owners, which are represented by the Comox Lake Land Corporation, are applying for a zoning bylaw amendment so that they can subdivide into 25 strata lots. So each of the cabin properties would be a strata lot. So the cabin property, as you all know, is obviously on Comox Lake, which is a drinking water supply of about 49,000 residents in the Comox Valley. So protection of the drinking water supply quality is paramount when we review this application. What staff is asking with this report is to gain council support for an early referral to key agencies that have a stake and have an interest in this application and how it may progress. And that's in particular the Comox First Nations, which has some culturally important sites around Comox Lake, the Comox Valley Regional District, which manages the drinking water supply, and also the Watershed Advisory Group, which advises the Comox Valley Regional District on watershed issues, and which also is currently reviewing the watershed protection plan, which identifies risks to the watershed drinking water supply. And as part of this application, that will be one of the key things that we could look at with these agencies before coming forward with specific proposals back to council. The report identifies our key policies that would be guiding the review of the application, or the regional growth strategy, as well as our own official community plan and zoning bylaw, current zoning bylaw. Yeah, I think at this point, I'm open to questions if you wish. Yeah.
Right, opening up to questions. Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, thanks for the report, and I certainly agree with forwarding this to Comox First Nation and CVRD for comment. I read through this report, and it kind of confused me as to what the intention of the subdivision and strata would be, because it seemed like they already had the ability under legally non-conforming to do repairs or upgrades and anything that they were sort of hinting at needed to be done to the cabins. There's issue, I think, with floodplain and maybe moving the cabins. Is that one of the problems that would be addressed? It wasn't clear to me what the issue was that couldn't be addressed under the current zoning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mayor and Council, the Mayor's not here. If I can reply to that. So I think one of the key things for the cabin owners is currently it's one single property, and they're represented, which is owned by the Comox Lake Land Corporation, which is all the cabin owners, really. They form part of this corporation that makes decisions on their behalf, which means all of them making decisions jointly. So it does make it difficult for the individual owners to get mortgages on their properties. It's hard to get a bank loan if there's actually no property to register it against. It's a larger property. They can't sell they can sell a share, right? It just, I think the strata makes it a little bit easier for them to manage their properties. Yeah, we will have to review this carefully. It does in some ways also make it a little bit easier to put notices on title if there's issues with a particular lot. But we'll have to review this as part of the referral process.
Yeah, it did seem like you could sell currently the share and your interest in the cabin itself and the lease could all be sold or handed down to relatives. So that was in the report. So that's why I'm a little confused. Like if we allow subdivision, is it because they want to basically increase the size of those cabins and start with fairly significant building projects? That's my concern. So it wasn't clear what the intention was out of the strata.
Yeah, Courtney.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that to what Karen said, that although they have requested the ability to subdivide, what they really want initially is to be able to do some renovations beyond what's protected in legal non-conforming, so some expansion. And subdivision isn't necessary for that, but what is necessary is that the zoning allows more than one dwelling. So right now the zoning only allows one dwelling. So if they want to make any expansions or moving or anything like that, the zoning has to allow all the dwellings. Say this lot can have 25 dwellings. Then the subdivision is an option as well that they've requested, but it would not necessarily be required to solve the problem that they see of not being able to apply for building permits and make those expansions. And then I also wanted to add that the zoning actually could limit the size of dwellings. It's open, and that can be addressed in a future report, but those sort of limitations can be explored on the size of dwellings into the future.
Has everybody spoken? I have a question. Oh, Councillor Brown, do you have something to say?
Thank you, Councillor Kettler. That was my confusion as well, is what the intent behind doing that. So that makes sense. I really appreciate the report and the detail that Wedler and the environmental group have done. And I have similar concerns about expansion out there, although I do understand that people are living there year round. And so we do need to find a way to to manage the renovations and expansions that are happening out there, and mitigate any impact on the watershed, including restoring the shoreline. So hopefully that will be part of the consideration moving forward with the new zoning, is removing any hard landscaping and putting natural vegetation as much as possible to restore those ecosystems. Happy to refer it and see what comes back. It's a problem.
My concerns are the water quality of Comox Lake. I'm not clear on how a rezoning of this property would help to keep the good water quality of Comox Lake. I understood that these past few years, the applicants have spoken with people in the planning department in the past and have been told that they had to put together a water treatment, a wastewater treatment plant in order to be able to develop. And that would include over at the far side. As you know, there's two pieces of property. So would they have to do that? Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So as you know, the CVRD purchased a large portion of the property, and the appendix shows the boundaries of that recent purchase. And part of that purchase, the CVRD held some of the money back, some of the purchase price back, conditional upon the cabin owners upgrading their septic systems and or holding tanks. In some cases, they can't put in septic. So that has happened. The cabin owners have upgraded all their septic tanks or have installed holding tanks where they can have a septic system. So there's still a few issues potentially. There's some joint wells that Island Health regulates and views as a community water service potentially. So we need to understand a little bit better where the different agencies are at with this development, with the principal goal just being protecting the drinking water quality in the lake. So is the septic system, the holding tank combination sufficient for long-term protection of the drinking water supply? That's something we'll explore with VHA and also the water shed advisory group. Would there be a requirement for a different system to make it even safer? So just what are the upgrades that might be required within a certain number of years? What can we do to ensure that happens? So all those kind of things, those are big questions that definitely need to be explored. And that's the purpose of really the early referral before we get into any drafting of any zoning bylaw, to understand what might be possible solutions and how we could potentially accommodate the request. Or if we can't, that's a possibility as well. So it's really to have a thorough review of the application before bringing it back to you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the regional district has to say, that's for sure. I'm curious, it doesn't really have to do with this issue here, but the piece of land that they're on got divided into two pieces. As far as I can see here, the regional district bought Coal Beach, and then in the northeast corner is more of the Comox Lake Land Corporation, surrounded by the regional district. Is that a subdivision? What happened here on this map on page 105? Does that count as that?
Yes, so they did subdivide for the purpose of creating that area as a conservation area, watershed protection conservation type area.
Did that come through us?
No,
Don't-
subdivisions generally do not go to council. So
Oh, okay.
yes. Yeah.
All right, and I just want to say one of my concerns is it is hard, as Councillor Kettler pointed out, to figure out what the advantage would be to the property owners, since they seem to have the ability to do most everything except build a larger house, which has me a bit concerned because I would hate to see Comox Lake plastered with mega homes. I'm not saying that will happen, but if the ability is there, as we've seen in Cumberland itself. So anyway, I don't know where that's going or what we can do about that, but those are my concerns.
Yeah, as Courtney points out, I mean, you can, as part of your zoning, restrict the maximum number, the maximum's dwellings, the maximum gross floor area of a dwelling.
Okay.
So that would be one way of potentially doing that.
Right. Oh, Councillor Brown.
Question answered. Thanks.
So I'm sorry, I didn't in my summary provide a brief overview of the recommendation number 3, which is to draft a watershed protection zone for that area of Comox Lake that is within the jurisdiction of the village. Not all of that is part of the cabin property. They actually own partway into the lake. So the idea here, so we can't do it as part of that rezoning. It's a separate process that we would have to undertake, but it would bring us, it would follow up on the goals of the regional growth strategy and also our own, and ensure that we have a similar level of protection for that part of the lake as the regional district, which now has a drinking water, it's a zone drinking water supply. Actually, I don't know if that's exactly the name of the zone, but it's zone for drinking water protection. So that's a second request, the second recommendation. So we would bring forward a draft zone of what that might look like if that's supported by council. It would be a parallel but separate process.
Okay. Councillor Brown.
Okay, and then so with that zoning, would we be well, I guess that we would refer it to Comox and the regional district, and depending on their response, that would influence the zoning, or that zoning would come after that response. Yes.
You know, the way we have it worded now, the referral, early referral is for the rezoning application by the Comox Lake Land Corporation. And then the draft watershed protection zone is just to present a draft to council first.
Okay, so I'm just wondering whether or not, so there's the information in the package from the applicant, but I think, however we create that zone, that's going to have a huge impact on what our referral, the people we're referring it to, think about the application. Because we could restrict a whole lot of things in that zoning that are not consistent necessarily with the application.
Yeah.
So just wondering the timing of it, how that might work.
I think that's a very good point. I think it makes sense to discuss that at the same time, if that's council's wish, and you don't want to see a draft zone first, we can just explore what that might look like at the same time. Yeah.
Courtney, did you have anything to say?
Thanks. I don't know if I heard correctly, but if this clarification is helpful, that that the agencies we're referring to early after this report, we would also give them a formal referral a second time after the zoning had been drafted.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
So the recommendation is that council directs staff to engage the Comox First Nation and key agencies in early discussions on the application. Does
So-
anyone?
I will move that.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Second.
I will also move.
Favor? Okay,
All in favor, yeah.
and then should I just move straight into this last one since we already talked about it, the last point? That council directs staff to draft a watershed protection zone for that area of Comox Lake that falls within the jurisdiction of the Village of Cumberland and present it for discussion at an upcoming meeting.
I'll move that.
I will second that.
Good. All in favor? Whew, good. Done. And now is the mayor coming back? There.
Good job, Councillor Sproul.
Thank you. I haven't done that for years. We have a healthy mayor. She's always here. Okay.
Sorry about that. Take me a minute to unmute myself and increase the volume. Okay, next, recommend that council receive the heritage alteration permit and development variance permit application 2714 Dunsmuir Avenue report.
Move receive.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. If it's okay, Karen, go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report is to request a referral to the Heritage Committee. So it's an initial report on application for heritage alteration permit and a couple of variance requests by the new owners of the Cumberland Hotel site who wish to replace the Cumberland Hotel with a new building. The building is to have 3 commercial spaces on the ground floor and 15 units above. 4 stories in total, and the 15 stories would be mostly, the 15 units, residential units would be a single 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. The building would have an elevator and what looks like a top 5th floor, and we've gotten some of this. There's some mention of this in some of the correspondence and submissions we've received. Is actually the elevator shaft and the electrical room on the top floor, which our zoning bylaw permits for. We will make sure that the size is appropriate and permitted as per the zoning bylaw, but in principle, yes, an elevator shaft and electrical on the top floor is permitted. The applicants are requesting, based on their expected occupancy of the commercial units, they may require up to 30 parking spaces. 15 would be required for the 15 residential units and 15 for the commercial units. So we don't know yet for certain. It depends on the final uses, and then we'll know closer to building permit who their occupants might be. However, at this point, based on their projections of a restaurant and a health clinic and a bike store or bike rental place, it could be up to 15 further parking spaces. So the variance that are requested is one of the residential spaces. There's a request for variance to reduce that requirement from 15 to 14 spaces. They're providing 14 spaces, and it's kind of hard to see on the drawings, but it's called a Klaus multi-parking system. And it's almost called it a carousel. It is like, you park and in the empty spot. So there's actually 15 spaces, but only 14 can be parked. The whole system might moves your car. You get out the car, you slide the car in, and the system moves the car where it fits, and then leaves an empty spot at the bottom again for the next person who comes in. So there's always one drive-in slot. So it's actually quite an innovative way to provide parking in a fairly small area. It's 3 levels, and I said altogether 15 spaces, but only 14 can be occupied. Hence the request for one variance for one of the residential parking spaces. And yeah, the 15 commercial ones were calculated by myself based on their intended, the projected occupancy. So they're asking to reduce whatever it ends up being to 0. we have the applicant hosted a public information meeting this past Wednesday at the Masonic Hall, which was really well attended. We had about, I attended early on in the process, and we estimate about 30 to 40 residents attended. The village received quite a lot of comments, partly in response to that open house, partly in response to a mail out that we did to within a 75-meter radius of the property. And partly through, I think there's been a lot of activity on different Facebook sites. So we've received quite a bit of comments, and they were all provided as late items to you this evening. If any further comments come in, they'll be added to the package, and that also goes all to the Heritage Committee. I'd like to just address some of the key questions or concerns raised. I can't address them all here. This was quite a lot of comments, but just to clarify for the people who may be listening in, who sent in submissions, one was the height of the building. As I already mentioned, it's not 5 stories, it's 4, and that is permitted by the zoning bylaw. So there's not at council's discretion to change that and make the applicant do 3 stories. The zoning bylaw permits 4 stories. So how the building is to look, the form and character, is subject of the heritage alteration permit. A few residents also expressed concern about the building being a concrete building. So that impression may have been given by the use of this whitish gray cladding that's going to be facing on the ground floor, facing especially 2nd Street, and then a little bit around the corner, I think. So no, it's going to be a wood frame building, but there's siding, cladding, and the ground floor may look sort of like a rough stone or whitish grayish concrete, but it's not a concrete building. There was also a question whether the applicant was going to consolidate there's actually 2 lots. The Cumberland Hotel sits on 2 lots, whether there was going to be lot consolidation. Their initial application says there wouldn't be, but we've since confirmed with the applicant that they will be consolidating the lots into a single lot. One other question that came up is whether the building could include units of affordable housing. So we don't have a mechanism, or council doesn't have a mechanism to require affordable housing units in this property. As per our zoning currently. And really the only way we could do that would be through a density bonus. So there's limited ability to address some of the concerns that were brought forward. However, the concerns that were brought forward with respect to form and character, staff will analyze this more carefully and also look at the comments that were received, and the report to the Heritage Committee will look at form and character more thoroughly, and then the Heritage Committee will obviously be commenting on that. I think that's, let me just see if I missed anything. Yeah, no, I think that's really covers most of, covers the details of the application.
Okay. Councillor Sproul.
Yes, it was interesting, Karen, to hear about the density bonusing, because that was one of the tools we were looking at in the Heritage Toolkit, that somehow if we gave something, we could get something back. Is it too late to change heights or do any kind of height of the building? Can we do anything with density bonusing now, or is it just too, are we too much into the process?
Yes, once you receive an application, the date of the receipt of the application is the zoning bylaw that applies. So if you wanted to change the zoning bylaw, it wouldn't apply to this application. They submit it under our current zoning bylaw. So whatever is in that bylaw now stands for that application. Yeah.
Okay. How do members of council, generally we don't make any comments on that during this process because we refer it to the committee, but this has been quite an issue in the village. Do member of councils want to wait until it comes back from the Heritage Commission, or are they wanting to speak now about some of their concerns? Councillor Brown.
I'm happy to refer it. I'd also like to refer it to the Accessibility Committee. I understand, I did attend the open house, and I heard that there were accessible units within the building. So I just would like the Accessibility Committee to have an opportunity to have a look at them, because there's not much detail, as of yet. Yeah, I'm happy to leave it at that for now. Except we could, I guess this is a question, not a statement. Could we, if we provided are we allowed to, when we give a variance, request some below market units and a housing agreement to go along with them? There was some conversation at the open house again that there was maybe one unit that could be below market rent, but they didn't know just yet whether it would be or wouldn't be. And since they're condos, so they are for purchase, as I understand, one of them being a bit below market rent or at a reasonable rate. I don't know if there's something we can do there in the process.
Yeah, so you can't trade your variances for that, but for something, but it's really up to the applicant. They can certainly provide something that they feel maybe council would like to see. But we can't require that as we can't say we give you the variance if you give us this. So sometimes applicants or developers may want to do that to get more support for the application, but we can't make it a requirement. It's up to the applicant in the end.
Okay.
Councillor Kettler, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to also add the APC to the referral because there is the variance for the setbacks as well. So I think that would be worthwhile to refer to the APC. And then just a comment about the density bonusing and the challenge. We certainly want to be able to do that, but to retroactively, and we've talked about it before, lower the allowable height of buildings. It was my understanding that if we did that for the current property owners, it would be considered a downzoning. So would there need to be compensation for the current property owners that have plans, not that they have an application in, but just for property owners that say the Patch or King George who might want to put an apartment building there in the future, and so having it sort of downzone to a 3-story instead of a 4-story building, would there be repercussions for the village in that case?
It's my understanding that so far the courts have always landed on the side of local governments when it comes to zoning powers. So local governments didn't so far, and we would check into this because case law can change. But so far, local governments have not had to compensate property owners for changes in zoning. So existing users would continue to be non-conforming within the legal non-conforming within the zoning bylaw that was in place at the time that they had that use. So downzoning, you have a floor area ratio, and so the floor area ratio is, you could keep the same floor area ratio, but just make it harder to get that last little bit of the floor area ratio, or make it harder, have a requirement to get that last little bit of the floor area ratio. It's 2 right now, a floor area ratio of 2, which means if you were able to cover the whole property 100%, you would have 2 stories. Of course, we have a setback of, we only have 75% lot coverage, so that means at that floor area ratio, you can go up to 4 stories, and we permit 4 stories. So you could say, well, your floor area ratio for market housing is 1.5, and any additional would be subject to some affordable housing units. So that you wouldn't necessarily have to reduce the floor area ratio, but you may make the last bit of it contingent on some affordable housing. That's an example. But again, as we just spoke earlier, this application is in under the existing zoning. So the current zoning bylaw is what they would have to comply with.
Yeah. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, so just to follow, thank you, Karen. Just to follow that through. So given the concern we're hearing from the community about 4 stories and what that's feeling like on the ground as the first 4-story build goes up. It's in our purview to adjust our zoning to be like, whoa, we kind of made a mistake there. It shouldn't maybe be so high. And what would be the process for us moving forward with that?
If council decides to do that, and then that's why maybe Courtney wants to jump in, but you just want to weigh that against the other priorities, of course, right? If this is a priority, it would take a resolution that we look into that and provide some options and make sure we present something, but that's doable and that actually might make a difference. I think the challenge with this particular site is also it's a corner unit.
Yeah.
And that makes it much harder to, well, it's more dominant anyways because of its location. So the Rideout building is going to be 4 stories, but it's between 2 other buildings, and one is sort of 2.5. You know, the actually the handy side development between Seeds and that building is going to be 3. So it's not going to, I think, be quite as impactful. So it's a challenging site.
Mm.
Okay. Councillor Sullivan, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm happy to refer them to all the committees, and I'll just hold what I have till after that. Thanks.
Okay, so does someone want to make the motion, please?
I'll move that council refer the heritage alteration and development variance application for 2714 Dunsmuir Avenue to the Heritage Committee, the APC, and the Accessibility Committee for comment.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, that council received the fan house covenant modification request report.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Yeah, Mayor and Council. So it's another meaty report, I think. So this report is coming to you to seek support to modify the fan house covenant, which was put on the site that contains the number 5 fan house on what will be the Penrith Road extension within Coal Valley Estates. And the purpose of that was initially to protect and preserve the fan house. Since that time, you've received a few reports that reviewed the fan house and the ability for the village to actually, and the cost involved with retaining or upgrading that fan house. And previous reports, council passed a resolution that it was okay to demolish the fan house and commemorate it on that site in some other way. So the modification of the fan house covenant would still provide the possibility to commemorate the site of the fan house, but also enable a different road alignment that the developer is looking for, which would straighten out Penrith Road a bit more, permit him to add some more, potentially a couple properties on the other side of the road, make it a little bit, actually it's less road surface, I guess, as well. So in discussions, and Courtney, as an approving officer, had some of these discussions. In discussion with the developer, we looked at green space throughout the development, and when the village hosted the Soulport Park consultations at Soulport Park, it came up. Some of the comments that we received was, why is there no green space dedicated in the northwest side of the development? And a need was felt to have something there. When council met last summer to review the comprehensive development agreement amendment proposal, some discussions around the council table were a desire to have some green space or open space that would maybe be more suitable for developing some kind of facility, a recreational facility. Soulport Park is fairly steep, and there's only a fairly small area at the top that could be developed for recreation. So the developer is proposing, in conjunction with the modification of the fan house covenant, to gift a couple of properties to the village. So one is the property in the northwest corner of the development. And I can bring up a map quickly here. Actually, that would probably help. Let me just share my screen. as I talk about this. Can you see this? Oh, okay. I'm just going to have to, I'm going to be looking away from the camera because my screen is actually on the other screen. I have two screens. Okay, so let me just go up top. So when you look at this map, which is lying on its side, I think you can see my cursor. So the northwest corner is here. So that would be one piece of land that would be gifted. And then this other one here, which we have saw before, the developer was considering gifting that to the village for the potential of an affordable housing lot. But it would be a challenging build. This would be the modified fan house covenant area, which is quite a lot narrower. So I'll just proceed to the next slide, which shows this in comparison with the schematic plan of the layout of the road system on the development. That's part of our comprehensive development agreement. So the comprehensive development agreement map is on the right here. You can see the fan house being a little bit wider, the fan house covenant area, and this up top is actually multifamily area, and this is also multifamily area where he's proposing to gift the two pieces of land. So both of those pieces would come out of the multifamily area. The covenant, the comprehensive development agreement on title, which is a covenant, sorry, states that a formal amendment process is required if more than 5% of the types of use areas are changed. So so we did some calculations around this, and there's an overall increase to the single family area of less than 5%. So there's the change altogether is less than 5%. And Courtney might want to speak to that as well. She had quite a few discussions about this with the developer. So at this point, staff is not proposing park dedication of those lots. They would be gifted to the village for future discussion of what the village might wish to do with those parcels. We had a preliminary look at that, just from a green space perspective. As I said, there is a desire for something in the northwest corner of the property, and the lot that's on this side here is fairly wet, seasonally wet. There's some the environmental report that was submitted as part of the environmental DP, which will still come your way, identified some blue listed wandering salamander habitat in this area. And it's also contiguous with the existing park, which is partially wetland. So it would add to the overall habitat value of that parcel. So the best use identified so far may just be to leave it as a conservation area. So I just want to share a further slide. So here just shows you what the change in fan house covenant area would look like as a close-up. So you can see the original fan house covenant area is here, and with the road alignment now proposed right through the covenant area, the covenant area would be changed, and the fan house park would become more of a sliver. So there was a design that you saw that Don Ferguson of the Royal We presented. So this all goes back a little bit. So that's why I brought the images up for you. He worked on 3 concept designs, and council and also the Heritage Committee supported the shell concept, which was to show the dimensions of the original of the fan that was used in the fan house to bring fresh air into the mine shaft. So it's really alludes, the arcs allude to that, the size of the fan, which is quite impressive in size, and there would be an interpretive sign to this schematic that here this little concept doesn't show that. So council at their December 20, what was it? It's been a while. November 2019 meeting directed the designer to find a way to incorporate some of the the original materials of the fan house into the design, into the bed. It specifically asked for benches, and so this is the concept that he came back with. So it's basically gabion wire cages that would have some of the rubble of the demolished fan house and a seating area on top, and then the potential to integrate that into the park sign. So that would be a way to just show what the material, just something more tactile, I suppose, than an interpretive sign, and the public art piece of what the materials were like of the fan house. So the developer has agreed to construct that as part of our discussions with him. I think, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. So Courtney identified a number of steps, and you might have questions which you'd be happy to answer in the Coal Valley subdivision application. So there's still a few more things that we would look at if council approves the modification of the fan house covenant, with nonetheless would be looking to the developer to also provide a traffic management active transportation plan. There would be new covenants registered onto the two gifted areas in exchange for lifting the fan house covenant. Those would be registered on title. The developer would still have to go through the environmental development permitting process, and as part of the prior to the granting of the subdivision. So I think those are the key items. And if you have questions, we're both here to answer them.
Okay, we will go around the table and everybody will get the opportunity to ask questions and comment. So we will start out with Councillor Kettler.
Okay, thanks. Well, yeah, it's been a while since we've seen Coal Valley Estates on the agenda. I have a little bit of concern about approving this when we haven't seen the other things that we would like to see with this application, including the stormwater management and the environmental protection area. I think that, there would be reason to use the green space and have that incorporated into stormwater management. So to have him kind of piece out the parks and then, say that, the upper ravine can sort of be protected. It kind of, there's just not enough information to sort of make an assessment as to whether this is beneficial or not. And I think the lower portion of the ravine requires more protection, and we need to discuss widening that protection area, but that's not part of this discussion, but I think it needs to be. So I'm just not sure where to go with this, because it feels like we'd be giving a go-ahead when we haven't got all the information that we need on the other items.
Courtney?
Thank you. The approach we're recommending here is to let's see. It's really hard for us to advance the subdivision application and a proposed lot layout without knowing how Penrith Road can be aligned. So the recommendation is for council to give actually a preliminary indication of their support for amending that shape of the fan house covenant, so that then we can take the next step with the subdivision application. And the way that the recommendation is worded would be that this all sort of stacks up and nothing is final until it's all final. So if the questions, if the subdivision layout needs to change again as a result of the environmental development permit, it can. So I'm trying to set up a stepwise process so we can make some steps forward, but without committing to anything until we do know all the answers.
Yes, Councillor Kettler, continue.
I do have more questions about, so the park, the square one in the corner, is that the area which actually goes back down the slope, and there was a waterway running through that, and then they moved a bunch of fill on top of it? Is that that area that actually needs to be have some restoration done to it, or I'm just wondering about that park.
Yeah, I can briefly speak to that. Yes, absolutely. So that the northwest corner has that seasonal creek running through at the very corner of it, which it turns out does flow for more than 6 months of the year. And the a biologist, we reported that to the developer, and a biologist did provide a recommendation to rehabilitate that, and that would be part of the requirement. With a 5 meters on either side with vegetation. So that would then be actually, so they would have to rehabilitate that and restore that a setback, but it would then end up pretty much all of it, I think, within that gifted area.
Okay.
Mhm.
Councillor Spruill?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's the area where he had the Atco trailers. It's a big flat area. I was with Councillor Brown the one day we went out with Dave Atkinson, and he knew I was always wanting a flat field where you could kick a soccer ball around. He's got that really clear. And he showed a flat area, but it dropped off at the back side. He had, as I say, some kind of trailers, little buildings that were involved in the construction thing. But if it was flat, but it wasn't a very big area, and there was a steep drop down the far side. I'm wondering if that's what it is.
I think what you're thinking of, and I'll just put the I'll do the share screen again. Let's see. I think it's not that area. Where are we here?
I think that area was the bulb of kind.
Yeah, that's right. So I believe so. Councillor
Yes.
was standing at was the bulb here, the end of Kendall
Right.
Avenue.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. And the steep drop off would go into this area that he is proposing to give to the village, which is seasonally wet. So what he's proposing instead is like the very northwest corner up here, and it's actually fairly flat. He's got the houses are already progressing up Lindale. They go into about here. So if you're up there, there's a height of land here on this side of the road. It goes up here, but then it's reasonably flat. Yeah.
And of a size, a reasonable size. I mean, I don't know what reasonable is, but something you can kick a ball around on and it doesn't go over an edge.
Yeah, it's 0.45 hectares. It couldn't go over an edge, so that's the one good thing. There's definitely there's actually the height. It goes up a little bit on this other side here. There's the creek drops off into here, so there's a little bit of a drop off this way, but then generally up here it goes up. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Yeah, I have, so with all due respect, the areas he's offering us as park are not developable areas. So it's not really, it's not giving up anything. And they're not terribly usable areas, particularly the ravine space. Like you could have a trail through there that could be a beautiful community trail. And it would be an excellent natural asset for the village. And clearly we want to protect the ravine and all of the slope leading into the ravine. But I think we could do that without him gifting it to us. I think we could do that by saying you can't develop on a slope over a certain percentage because it's going to destroy the wetland that you're in. So basically thanks, but no thanks for the gift because you can't develop there anyway. The area at the top of the northwest corner, has been significantly damaged. It was a beautiful natural area with a stream and trees and all kinds of loveliness in there. And it is now a gravel dump or rock quarry, or I'm not sure what it is. So he's offering to restore a stream that he damaged to begin with, which he would be required to do anyway, if we asked him to, because I think that's a reasonable ask. And also, I don't want a stream restored with sprayed grass on the side. I would rather it was a stream restored with trees on the side. So it was actually then becoming a functional system. So I mean, I understand staff wanting to move this forward. I understand all of us wanting to move this forward. This CDA, I believe, first came to us in 2008. Of course, I wasn't around, but I think Councillor Sproul and the mayor were here. And it's, and I think the context within which the CDA now lives has significantly changed since then. We now are concerned about affordable housing. We now are concerned about site adaptive planning. We are now concerned about climate mitigation and developing with climate mitigation in mind. And I actually would like to bring a motion forward to ask for legal advice on how to move forward with this application, because I don't think we're getting anywhere. And I don't want to, I mean, if we're not actually allowing, I'm concerned that we will say, yes, you can build a road like this, but we're just creating another Kendall Avenue. And we've clearly heard from the people who live on Kendall Avenue desperately saying, please don't do this again. It doesn't work. And he's asking us to, because he's destroyed the heritage property that we asked him and put a covenant on protecting. He literally blasted to the edge of it and destroyed it. Now he wants to cover it with a road to make that road straighter, which is just, and I appreciate staff asking for a traffic management and active transportation plan. That's great. But the very first step in that would be to design a road that's not a speedway, that's not a long, straight road down a hill. Yeah, I think the context of the CDA and the village, quite frankly, has changed enough that we need to relook at this. I'm also concerned that he's taking land out of multifamily, the multifamily zoned areas to give us parkland, but the multi-family areas, typically the more affordable housing, which is what we would like more of and not less of. So this is a way to get more single family, more high return single family dwellings. And I'm not sure what the benefit is to the village for us to do this.
Councillor Sullivan.
Cool. Thank you. That was my question, is how many more single units is less than 5%? Is there a number for that within this ask here?
I think Courtney did the calculations, but I don't know if she has it on hand right now.
Yeah, we did the calculations and but we did it by area. And I don't have that number in terms of number of units of single family in front of me.
And
I have to get back to you on that.
Okay, that number is useful as well. So I imagine that is 5% less, or you cannot reduce the multifamily by 5% less. That makes sense. That would be the same kind of law. Is that how that works? Unless he's gifting it?
That's correct. So in this situation, the multifamily isn't being reduced initially, or it isn't actually being reduced because the land would be gifted to the village and it would still retain that, it would still be within the multifamily area. And then the village could decide what to do with the land. So that is, and the village can decide what process to go through to make that decision in the future. in theory, the village could develop it as multifamily if that was the choice of the village. And what we've presented here in this report was that that northwest corner appears to have the likely value to address the need for a flat park area, but that's not predetermined. The village could decide how to use that land in the future.
Another question, has the buffer that straddles Road B, that has not changed on the sandstone cliff part of the ravine there? Has that gotten bigger? Is that, am I mistaken?
Whereabouts is that?
Just the back of the seniors and the senior stuff.
And commercial, yeah.
The lower ravine. The lower ravine.
Oh.
Is that bigger or no?
No, that is the same, right? Is that, Karen, was there anything that changed with that recently? I'm trying to remember. I don't think
Hold
so.
on one sec. I'll just make sure I understand
Yeah.
what we're talking about. So if you look at the CDA map, this is the current map as part of the comprehensive development agreement, right? Councillor Sullivan, are you referring to this area here, or?
Yeah, just, yep, none of that's changed. It kind of looked a little bit bigger on the other side of Road B to me, but maybe that's not it.
So as part of the environmental development permit, we've had discussions about setbacks from the top of the ravine, and that would be presented as part of the environmental development permit. So yes, there would be some setback. It wouldn't become part of the park necessarily, but it would be a setback. And within that, there's, according to the concept map, there's to be a proposed greenway walkway right on this edge here. And so there's a setback of a number of meters. So we'll have to determine that based on stability of the ravine and the slope. That would have to be retained. Where they would have to retain the vegetated cover to ensure the stability of the ravine and the slope. But it wouldn't become part of the park. We don't have a mechanism to ask for more park space. He's not asking for he's not asking for a comprehensive development agreement amendment. So the exchange that he's offering is, at this point, was for the fan house, change in the fan house covenant. I don't know if that answered your question. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that did. Yeah, I understand that moving this forward is important, and we need to get to this multifamily housing quickly at some point, hopefully. But I'm interested in seeing the road straighten out somewhat, but he has to give us more, in my opinion. I'd like some more concrete things like moving those setbacks and some blasting guarantees. But I mean, is that we've got to say yes to this to get to some of the meat of that kind of stuff?
Yes, Courtney, go
Can I
ahead.
provide an answer to that? No, one of your alternatives is to say that you will not agree to amend the fan house covenant and it should stay in place. And then the developer would have a couple of options. One option would be to proceed with subdivision application, keeping the fan house covenant area as it is now and the road alignment that would be required to go around it. So they could do that, or they could decide to come back to council with another proposal to amend the fan house covenant area.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kettler and then Councillor Brown.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that it is hard to pass this, because this is the time that we would ask for park space. He's taking away park space, right? Like the park that we have is a usable park as it stands. He wants to turn it into a sliver that's just following along a cliff. And he's offering us unusable space, space that needs to be restored because of water issues, and then space that is inaccessible because of cliff and water issues. So now is the time to be asking for additional park space. And so, I think that's what we're saying, is that, we wouldn't want to move forward with this because we do need more park space, and we do need to see the stormwater management and how all of this development is going to affect the water there before we make those type of decisions.
Yeah.
Yes, Courtney, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So we so if council does want to, another option of council would be to request some more information and return to this decision. And we do actually have an updated stormwater management plan, and we're going to provide that with the next time the development permit application came to council. So as an example, we can provide that to council earlier. That's something that would help with this decision. Just wanted to make sure you know that we do have that. And just also wanted to say that, so if council doesn't want to amend the fan house covenant as requested, it's also possible that this, so that then the developer may choose to proceed like leaving that road alignment as it is. And I don't know if you would recall, but from previous staff reports a couple of years ago, there were some elevations that were done that showed that because of the grades, then that actual ruins of the fan house where they are now are in quite a hollow related to the road. So that's something I just wanted to mention.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you. I think if we allow, so I'm not interested in moving this forward. I think the corner lot that he's offered that's multifamily, clearly we would be inclined to create affordable housing there because we desperately need affordable housing. And that's great, except the community needs a park as well as affordable housing. The community in that area needs a park. So if we don't, and as I understand as well, the CDA is not binding to council. We can ask for changes to the CDA, right? The CDA is meant to confine the developer, but not necessarily council. So we can say, actually, the context of the CDA has changed, or perhaps this is what we could be getting legal advice on. The context of the CDA has changed. We would like more park space. We want to protect, we're asking you to restore the stream. We want to protect this ravine and the slope. So we need to move these pieces around. I'm not exactly sure what the process for that is, but I think that's how we need to move forward. That would give us a way to say, okay, we're going to move this here. We're protecting these areas. This is where the park goes. Now we look at how the road goes. And also, as I understand, if we, it's only if he raises the height of the road that it would end up in a big ravine. It's in a bit of a ravine right now, but then it flattens out at the bottom. So is that the case? Like right now, if we didn't realign the road, it would be at the existing height. How does that work?
If the road wasn't realigned and we didn't allow the developer to fill it in, then we would get what you see now, more or less, really, rather than, he has already the rocks moved up pretty much to the covenant line from both sides in anticipation of being able to fill in and then grade the road over the fan house. So you can kind of see now what you end up with potentially if no work is done on that area at all. It drops down into where the fan house is. It's already, the road is at a higher elevation on the side, that smaller gravel road. So that's what you would see. With respect to some of the what you can and can't do, I think we would need to get some legal advice. But my understanding is you can, after this comprehensive development agreements on title, and I couldn't jump in if you wish and add to this, but comprehensive development agreements on title, so you cannot change the comprehensive development agreement. He has a right to a certain amount of density that's captured in the agreement. He's provided the park dedication that were required in the agreement. What council can do and has done is put development, other regulations on top. So you since this was first signed, this agreement, the village changed its environmental development permit. We have multifamily development permit. We have a whole number of development permit requirements now that we didn't have before. I think in terms of the zoning, again, we'd have to look into that. He would still be entitled to the number of units. You can maybe change some of the things, the permitted uses within the zone, because the comprehensive development agreement doesn't speak to that. So you may be able to change some of the permitted uses. We would have to check into whether, for example, you could put in a rental only requirement within the multifamily. I'm not quite clear on that kind of thing. But as far as the agreement still stands. So the things that you can change have to be things that are not in the agreement. You can pass other bylaws and have other regulations on top. That's my understanding. So if you have specific questions, we would have to check into that though, for sure.
What he wants to do with the road, does it make it more dangerous? Does it leave a gap between the fan house and quite a steep bank down into the fan house from the road? Or is that what he's trying to get removed?
Well, he's trying to fill. So what his suggestion is to fill the fan house space. So cover the fan house, put the road more or less on top, not all of it, but fill it up to the rock bluff, the cliff face, which then you'd have probably very little cliff face remaining. Level it off and then put a small natural area there with the public art piece, which we then would see from the road. So basically, he'd level the park to the level of the road. So as part of his road realignment.
It's just been from the very beginning that has been a huge issue between him and between us, because I think if they had been proactive, they would have aligned the road differently from the beginning. And he chose not to do that. And yeah, so I'm not supportive of what he wants to do. I think we need to keep it the way we said we wanted it. But yeah, there's too many questions for that. And the other thing is, does it have any impact, the roadway? I know we're talking about speed and calming devices, and it's really, really needed in that area, as in other areas in the community. So, yeah, it is challenging. I think that my concern is with the ravine and protecting the ravine from blasting and everything else that's involved with the ravine, because it's such a beautiful area. And we need to protect it and not have something happen to it and then say, oh, sorry. That's my concern. And unfortunately, his record is not that great in what he's done in the past. And we have always had to go and figure out different ways of doing things. So yeah, it is challenging. And I want to thank you very much for all the work in trying to get this through, but I also see the concerns of the rest of council. And when this was approved was many, many years ago, and things have changed. And it's a good thing they've changed for the better in many respects, and especially for adapting to the environment. So I don't really want to lose anything. And if you look at the amount of usable parkland he has given us, it's very, very minor. Very minor. That other park he gave us, that's on a steep bank, and it can't be used as a playground area. So yeah, we need to really look this through. So thank you very much, staff.
What I suggest from what I hear is perhaps that we do need to, you can let this sit and consider it together with the environmental development permit application. Is that right?
I think that would be a wise move to do the two of them together. Now that we've had this one presented to us and we've understand and know what we really have gone into what we want to see and how to and what we want to protect. Now the next step is to work that in to the next phase that we're going to be looking at. Yes, Councillor Kettler?
Well, I also agree with looking into how we can change the CDA to meet some of the new new requirements and to have a different style of development that is more in line with what Cumberland wants. I've talked a lot about how it's a heat island in Coal Valley Estates because there are no parks and very few trees left. It would be wonderful to see more greenways, more connective trails like there is behind the one multifamily development off Kendall. People really love and appreciate having those trees, those mature trees. And if we could do more of that within the development itself, instead of trying to gift unusable land on the edges of the development, have more green space actually incorporated into the development itself. I think that would be really beneficial. I think that's something that we would like to see. Hopefully, if we could open the CDA and talk about how proper development would look if we were to do it again.
Yes, Courtney?
So council can amend the CDA if the applicant is willing. And if the applicant is not interested, then they can go ahead with their phase 11 subdivision under the current CDA. They still have to get a development permit and comply with the development permit area guidelines. But if they're not willing to reopen that CDA, they don't have to.
We went through that once before with them. And we were at a meeting and he started out wanting to change it and then he changed his mind. So it can be challenging. Councillor Brown?
So I'm hearing that none of us really want to move forward with this. And so if the development permit moves forward, it comes back to council and then we'll do this again. And so could we get some legal advice before we do that? Do I need to make that motion?
We can certainly arrange that that session ahead of the next, when it comes to council next. I'm not clear yet what the next step would be.
Yeah.
I guess I still need your direction. And I also need to understand, well, I don't know if I need to understand. It would be helpful to understand if council would be willing to amend that fan house covenant if the rest of the package was amenable to council, or if that is not on the table under any circumstances. That's something I don't have an understanding of at this point, and that would be very helpful because it will, to advance to the development permit stage, they have to have a lot layout and the road has to go somewhere. So it would be really helpful. I mean, it doesn't have to be the final layout, but quite a lot of work does go into that layout. We're going to need to understand blasting and grades for the development permit application. So it would be very difficult if we don't understand what road alignment is possible.
Is there not enough room on the other side to come down on the inside of the fan house?
No, not quite enough room there.
Can he abut the road right up to the yellow and the greenway?
The yellow and the green. Let me just
Sorry,
look here.
That's just taking the whole row of houses out for him. I'm sure he could. Absolutely, he could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is the whole thing. We keep asking for what we want. We get none of that. We get some pittance of the land around. I mean, this has not changed. I don't know if this is just me, but none of this seems to really have changed, except for giving us garbage land at the outskirts that are pretty useless. So I don't know. We've talked in previous meetings about the blasting, about giving more of a buffer, very, very specific things to Waycor, exactly what council is looking for to move this forward. So it's really frustrating and appreciate what staff's doing to try to work this through, but I'm not understanding why the proponent isn't actually coming with the changes or the requirements that we've asked. This is like the 4th time in a row. So I'd like to see something different happen. And if that's legal opinions, then I'm into that.
Yes, Courtney?
Now, some of this information, like details on blasting and even more of a buffer to some areas, if it was still within the, if it was not additional parklands, as Karen pointed out, that has, we can't actually require more parkland in this phase under the current CDA. The intent was that these details could be dealt with at the development permit stage. And I understand what I'm hearing, but that just to explain, that was the intent with this approach.
That would require trust in the developer from his past record, I think, but that's my opinion.
Councillor Brown?
So would you like me to move to deny this and then make my motion for legal advice, or which one first?
Which way, Courtney?
So I think the denial, if that is not reliant on the legal advice, then you could make that first.
So I'll move.
Just a
I'm not
minute,
sure.
Councillor Brown.
Okay, sorry. Oh,
Councillor Kettler's got her hand up.
I think we should probably answer Courtney's question though about whether we would be amenable to changing the road alignment in the current park in exchange for some of those things that we are asking for. And from me, that is something that I would consider, but I think we do need to look at it all together.
Mm-hmm. Well, those were the questions I had about moving the road in the plan instead of moving the park. Move the road.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Sullivan, did you had your hand up?
I was just going to say that I'm also amenable to changing the road, but there would have to be a lot of, he'd have to meet us a lot further than he ever has before for me to say yes to that. Otherwise, I say take out some houses and build the road where the houses are.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, Councillor Brown.
it would take a lot. I think for me, I think again, like I said in the beginning, realigning the park means making a long, straight, fast road, which is the first step in reverse of traffic calming. So, you know, there's no point in making a skinny park and then asking him to do traffic calming because we've already created it. We're working against ourselves. So I'm not amenable. Sorry.
Okay. You're not amenable to changing the road at all?
No, I would like to not have the skinny park because the skinny park allows for a long, fast road, straight, fast road.
But I'm not recommending that we change the park. I'm right.
No, I'm just answering Courtney's question, whether or not I'm amenable to changing the covenant to allow for that road if he does something different elsewhere. I think the road is part of the problem and everything builds off the road. So if we allow the road, then we're just creating the same kind of development that we have on the other side. That's caused a lot of problems.
Okay. So what is your plan, council?
So I'll move that we deny the applicants, I don't know whether I have to read all this, that we deny the modification of covenant CA 4570302 and CA 4570304, known as the Fan House Covenant, to change the covenant area to that area shown in the McElhaney Conceptual Design of Penrith Avenue Extension Design Memo dated June 25th, 2021. Can I stop there? Do I need to read the rest?
No.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to make a motion that we get legal advice on how to move forward with the Coal Valley Estates CDA with the next stage.
Okay.
The development part, I don't know how that needs to be worded exactly.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Kettler? Okay. My question is getting legal advice or having a workshop to talk to the lawyer. I think that might be beneficial for council to sit and talk with the lawyer. If
With the CDA in front of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so is that good enough direction? Yeah, okay, all in favor? Thank you very much, carried. I look forward to getting legal advice. Next, we have that council received the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program report.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So in front of you is a report that just kind of explains to you that the province has decided to wind down the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program. And so the result of that is that 2021 will be the last year that we have the CAREP funding available. You have seen correspondence from other municipalities that are really struggling with this decision because of the funding hit that they'll have, the larger ones. And so I just wanted to help you see it, like, be at ease, because we actually it costs us at the moment, because we're in a growth with our infrastructure and we pay a lot more carbon than we get back. We have to offset a lot more carbon than we get back. So for us, it's not a financial hit to lose that funding, but it was a good program. We used to be able to offset our carbon, and it's no longer available. However, the province will be looking at some other options, and they will be looking at the framework and seeing if they're going to bring back maybe some changes for that. So I'm not 100% sure what it all will look like in the future. The budget, there's an operating budget though in 2021 of $7,500 that was unspent at this point, because the offset program is ended with the CAREP program. And so that doesn't mean you can't purchase offsets. You can still purchase the offsets if you still wish to do that. There is just no carbon neutral program that we belong to anymore. So council can kind of look at that budget and they have some options, rather what they would like to do with it. So on page 234, I've kind of given you a few bullet points that you can have a quick look at to decide. And I just want to sort of point out the last bullet point talks about any other use for that funds, because this is an operating budget. It's not specific to anything. So you do have some choices here. You could reserve the money in 2021, and then also the future budgets. That's a net of 2,700. You could also reserve and build yourself up like a little nest egg towards some sort of carbon local project that might help, or wait for the new carbon neutral framework to see what that looks like. You could put the money toward, save towards that. You do have the option to purchase those carbon offsets still, if you'd like, and the same projects that you're used to is available. Or you could reduce your taxes in the future years by the $2,700. It's minor, but it's still an option. Yeah, so council can sort of look at that and hopefully give me some direction tonight in the form of a resolution. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sproul?
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I'm interested where it mentions the new carbon neutral framework. Is that been mentioned by the government that there could be some other program?
Yeah, they had mentioned in their, it is attached to the report here in a correspondence, and they had just mentioned that, they're actually not sort of like they're ending that particular program, but they're not going to take away the support that they want to provide. They want to revamp it. They said one of it is updating the BC Action Climate Toolkit and Green Communities Committee carbon neutral framework. And that's all they say. So that's why it's hard for me to tell you what it'll look like, or but that's one of the things that they talk about.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I think it would be really great for us to put that money into some kind of reserve for carbon sequestration or climate action projects. So either creating a community climate action plan, or even, pooling enough money and then putting a call out for community projects for somebody to do some awesome carbon reduction project in Cumberland, whether it's planting trees or I don't know what might come out of that, but that's what I would like to see, something that's actually mitigating climate change in the village.
Councillor Sullivan?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I'm a big fan of Michelle's reserves. So I say throw it in the reserves, and yeah, I agree with Councillor Brown, and use it towards some carbon neutral something or trees or something, but reserves always build up, so we can figure that out later.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I obviously think it's important that we keep collecting the data that we need on our greenhouse gas emissions and not lose sight of our targets of reduction by 2030. And so I hope that that's not affected by CARA, but from what you said, it didn't seem like it would be, but I just want to make sure that we continue on that path. I think the data collection is very important and informs our decision making. So I want to keep doing that. As far as the extra money goes, I personally would like to see it put towards our urban tree bylaw. I think that's probably the best way we could save trees, is by getting that bylaw passed sooner than later. And then when these developments come forward and want to just clear some land, there'll be extra considerations about keeping trees or replacement of trees. It probably would make the biggest difference as far as mitigation.
Okay, Councillor Sproul?
Yes, I'd like to keep the money somewhere where we can use it for sustainable projects, carrot related projects, and add to it. And also I'm just trying to figure out with Squamish has written a great letter to the government. Were they asking for us to also write letters wanting to show that we still want to keep carrot? I'm just trying to see. It's a good letter that they've written. I'm just trying to think if it's worthwhile writing to the government too, because it served our purposes well, many people, many municipalities.
Okay, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I just I appreciate Councillor Kettler's suggestion of the tree bylaw, and I'm also interested in moving that forward, but I understand it's already in the budget because it's in the plan. Is that, can you check on that?
Like in the 5-year budget, are you asking about?
Yeah, I can't remember where it is in the timeline. So whether we've already put aside money for that. or whether this, like if this helps move that forward, then I'm on side with that. But if we've already assigned that money and it's not going to help move it forward any faster, then let's put it aside for.
Well, we could actually say that we want to put the money aside until the budget process.
Okay.
And earmark it at the budget process of where we would like that money to go.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
gives
My
time-
thought process was that we would hire external help because I know that staff is overloaded, and the sooner we get that bylaw through, the more trees we will be protecting. So just using that money to hire somebody externally to expedite the process.
Okay.
So,
So
Yeah, I may have to get back to you on the urban, where we're at, because I'm not sure about, like, I thought is it
I think it's in the plan.
strategic priorities?
Yeah.
Tasks? Yeah, so I think Courtney did pop in earlier, so here she is again. I think I will ask her to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. So yes, creation of a tree protection bylaw is in the strategic priorities list, and the work has not yet commenced. Just having a double check there. That's right. As an outcome of the urban forest management plan is one of the recommendations. So we do have that on the priorities.
and is there a budget for it?
That we may have to get back to you on.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So we will wait for a report back from staff to where the money would be going for that project. Okay. So someone asked,
So am I hearing you correctly, that you would like this money to come back to the budget process? Is that what you were saying, or? Okay. Yeah.
So do you want me to move that?
Please
Yeah.
do.
That council directs staff to bring this 7,500 unspent carbon offset into the budget process for the coming, or just that. Is that
Yeah,
enough?
that's great.
Sorry,
Second,
one more. Did you also want to talk about the $2,700 every year after that, in the budget
Yes.
process?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, all of it.
So does somebody want to second that? Do you know what we're seconding? Would you like to read it again, Vicky, please, Councilor Brown?
Sure. That council directs staff to bring the unspent carbon offset budget of $7,500 this year and $2,700 for future budget years into the budget process. Is that better?
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Now, did anybody want to write a letter? Squamish did. Yes, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I think one of the important points out of the Squamish letter is that we're asking for a consistent funding source for local governments to address climate change, whereas what they've proposed now, after taking away that consistent source, is a grant application based source, which has us competing against each other, which is a problem and not supported by most local governments. So I think it would be good if we wrote a letter and highlighted that point in particular.
So you're moving that we write a letter to the government.
Yeah, of support for the Squamish's letter. Yeah.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Well done. Next, we have that council received the 2020 annual municipal report.
move receipt.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Oh, council. Just making sure I got all those notes right on those last resolutions there. For the 2020 annual report, it's presented here in your package. It's a little presented later in the year than we would have liked, but we did get it to you this year. So you'll see that this year's report, we've changed the format up a bit. It's has quite a few more images in it. It's got a letter from the mayor and the CAO included this year. We also have an update on council's strategic priorities for 2020. I think in the past we had a table format. This year it's more of a narrative format. Also have an update on last year's municipal services and operations and the impacts of COVID, of course, as well as the audited financial statements, which have been presented to council before, I think in the spring. So we're bringing this to you now to get any feedback that you'd like to provide, and then ask if you would move it forward to the annual meeting, which we're proposing to have on September 7th. And we do have to give public notice of that meeting in the newspaper.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Sullivan?
Where's Clayton? How can we have an introduction from our CEO after a pandemic without his picture?
Oh, very
Maybe
good.
we can scrape together a 5-year-old picture of him like we have a 4-year-old picture of us. We look like tiny babies. Hopefully we should have taken a new one, maybe for next year. For the last year, we'll re-up that one.
Good point.
Anyhow, it's a great report, but I think his picture is necessary in my opinion.
Good point. The only question I have is on page 261, and I'm finding that very difficult to read. It's the organizational structure.
Yeah, I can try and make that a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the blue and the white, but it's very difficult to read it.
Also fuzzy. I think it's fuzzy a bit.
Okay. That was my only thing. I think it's a great report. It certainly has changed. The pictures are amazing. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Brown?
I noticed that some of the committees, I believe, have changed. So just double checking that we have the right people in the committee list. And page 252 has some formatting trouble on the way I'm reading it anyway, the way it's downloaded onto my screen.
Yeah. Remember, this is last year's annual report. That's my committee members were there then sometimes.
Yeah, I still think there's some.
Yeah, that I'm sure she'll check it.
Yeah, I can double check that.
Thanks.
Okay, anything else from anyone? Yes, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that we put in the code of conduct. Do we? That was, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of feedback we get on that one.
I think there is a policy that says we include that.
It's supposed to be included.
I think it's a good reminder. Okay, can we have a motion now?
That council give notice of the meeting on September 7th, 2021, at which council will consider the 2020 annual report and submissions and questions from the public.
Seconder? Councillor Sullivan, all in favor? Carried. Next, that council received the verbal report on wildfire preparedness.
Receipt.
Seconder?
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Hello, Michael. Welcome. Your mic's off.
Hey, good evening there, Mayor and Council. I guess I'll just give you an update of what we're doing to start with, and then you can ask me questions afterwards. So to start with, we're doing mostly our routine weekend duty crew. Through the week, we usually have firemen around, and then a lot of them disappear through the weekend. Take vacation or go away for the weekend. So what we do is we have a 6-man crew plus a duty officer, plus now we have an extra staff out patrolling in outer village and in the village. We have like 8 people that we know we can get right away if we get a call. So that's routine every weekend. We try and fill that squad. So we have a good fast response to anything that happens. So this year we've had 4 pretty big bushfires, none in the village, thankfully, but they were fairly big. And one we called in Courtney for mutual aid with us, and once Courtney called us in for mutual aid with them. And but I think things are going pretty well. The village has been very good. No fires in the village whatsoever. And but our call volume is very high in July. It's 40 calls. 50% of them have been ambulance calls, and the rest have been fire calls or duty inspection calls, or smoke notice that we went out and checked out. We check out every little report nowadays. The forest is, just because we had the rain, the forest is still very dry. We're still concerned about wildfire. And so we're doing patrols all the way up to our dam, so right up the 4th dam. We go up there and on the weekends do a tour, talk to people. It's been kind of fun, actually, meeting a pile of people, a lot of visitors to the village, tons of visitors here. I was kind of surprised that one Saturday I was up there and everybody I talked to, only one person was from Cumberland. They were from everywhere else, from California to Vernon to Saskatchewan, everywhere. So, but the people seem very, very good and very aware of the fire season. And I think actually this is like the best public response we've had in all the years I've been chief anyways. People are very respectful, and I find it fairly safe with the feeling I get talking to people and the concern they have for our forest and the village. So it makes me feel a bit comfortable. This time of year, I'm never totally comfortable because, fire can break out anywhere, anytime. And so we're hopefully on guard with it.
Okay. You're open to some questions?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to the pros and cons of having people out on the trails, and what your view on that is.
So I have a theory that I kind of run by is, I think for people out on the trails and when I'm out there talking to them, they seem very good. And I think for maybe every bad person out there, there's probably 10 or 15 good people out there watching things. And we get reports from them. They seen this, or they seen a person smoking, or they think somebody was camping. We go check all those things out. We found, in all the patrols we've done, we've only found 2 people smoking. So that's pretty good. And they were very, very good about it when we talked to them about it. And we told them we don't allow smoking on our trails and stuff. And, they extinguished it right away, basically apologized, and we're very, very good about it. We've had no real issues like that. But I think having people in the forest is, it's like having eyes on the forest. The more eyes we have on the forest in our community, I think is better. That's what I think. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm right, but most of the trails in British Columbia are open except for Stanley Park, closed at night. And I think our trails are pretty much closed at night too. So I feel pretty confident that things are going along good.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Mike. I have been very concerned. I'm so glad you're out there patrolling. I understand that Mosaic is road building out there, but is that true? First of all,
I could find that out for sure, but they did build a new road just above Sykes Bridge, and I was in there looking at that, but all their activity, as far as I know, is stopped up in the bush.
Okay, that was my question. And so further to that, do we have whose authority is it to say you can't do that, and you can't do that right now. That's high risk behavior. Road building would be high risk behavior, right?
Yeah, that'd be our provincial forestry department that would say, no, you're not allowed out there. They have weather stations out there, and they send us them reports every day. I get like 10 reports on all the weather stations around here. And, if they meet a certain criteria, they shut it down. They could have early shift or whatever. As far as I know right now, it's shut down. Everything's shut down.
Okay. Thank you. Are we able to, sorry, one more thing. Are we able to request, like in a situation where we were concerned about activity out there, are we able to proactively request that from the province?
Absolutely. We can request anything. We can request. Absolutely, we can. I don't know if they'll listen to it, but we certainly could.
Thanks.
Councillor Sullivan, did you want to?
No, I just saw some pictures while I was away of the brush fire at Lake Trail, and was that the Bevan and Lake Trail? Is that?
Yeah, it was a Lake Trail in the Logan Road, just
Okay.
right there by Punledge Village. I don't know. Do you know where Punledge Village is? It was right across the road from there.
Yeah, it just looked really big, and just saying keep up the good work. That looked pretty scary.
Yeah, when you can get access like that, we have a good attack system. We have lots of water. That's the other thing we have on standby is lots of tanker trucks. We got good mutual aid. I talked to the forestry today because we've done 4 jobs for the forestry this year already. So we're in touch with them all the time. We got, if we need air support or anything like that, we have that right here in Campbell River. So, we have lots of water tenders around in the valley here. There's contract ones, but it does concern me along the edge of the village. The village is absolutely surrounded by forest, and but we can get to most of that edge. So if we can get to it quick enough in some of these spots, like the one at Punledge Town site, it was pretty easily handled. It was going really good, but once we got 2 lines in there, we could take care of that pretty good. We also got our new boat in operation now for along the bottom end of the lake. We got a pump, sucks water right from the bottom of the boat, and we can get 2 fighting lines off that with 100 PSI on each line. We can handle a pretty decent fire with that.
Well,
Councillor Sproul?
Yeah, I'm really pleased to hear all that news. I ran into Fire Chief at the lake the other day, and yes, he told me about the compliant public and also Mosaic paying our fire crew to check out their lands from time to time at a cost. So I feel well protected from fire. Thank you.
I also understand, Michael, you were out down at the bottom side of the lake also, talking to the cabin owners there.
Yeah, I went out and they've bought I think 4 or 5 pumps for their cabins out there. I went out there and a couple of them wanted me to show them how to run the pump, how to set it up. And so I've been working with a few of them out there to show them if they do have a fire, like, of course, we're going to respond, but if they have their own pumps and they feel they can get it from a safe place, a small fire, they're thinking of that. They're getting pretty fire wise out there because they realize where they are. Some of it's a long haul for us to get out to the far end cabins, but we could probably get over there faster with our boat. But yeah, they're very aware of the fire situation, and they're working at keeping their places safe.
Okay, that's it. Well, thank you very much for coming tonight, Michael, to give this report. I know the weather has changed a little bit, but it still is dangerous out there. And thank you very much. And thank all your firemen also, because I know it's extra work for them, but they all live here and they want it to be a safe place for their families also.
So we sent also one of our firemen tomorrow's leaving with Oyster River to go to the interior to work. They didn't have enough men for a crew to send a truck, so one of our guys volunteered, so he's going up to that Moat Lake area with Oyster River Fire. And another good thing about our land that people don't realize compared to their land is we have a lot of green vegetation in our forest, and like fireweed and ferns, and it's all pretty green. So we don't burn at the same rate as those kind of interior fires with all the grass, and we have a little bit slower burn, but if it gets in a big timber or high trees, even that rain doesn't even reach the bottom of those timber patches. So that's the place we got to concentrate on. Thanks for giving me the opportunity here to tell you our fire plan.
Thank you very much for coming. Councillor Brown?
Sorry, I just had one more question regarding the forest. So like you said, the village is surrounded by forest, and we've got park on the one side, which is interfacing with working forest. And we have spoken to Mosaic about fire mitigation. I can't remember what they call it, where they go in and thin and make sure it's safe. But I wonder about talking to them about actually having a fire break at between, say, the Cumberland Forest and their forest. Have you ever heard of that? Could we ask for that?
Yeah, actually, I have already asked for that one year. Between the chlorine station and the bottom road there, it would be nice to have a fire break there. I've talked to Hancock about that. One of the things I've discussed many times with Hancock is to try and keep these roads drivable so we can get up them. Because if we can get close enough, we can get a fire out fairly quickly. It's the ones that we can't reach. We have to lay 1,000 feet of hose or something like that. Them are difficult fires to get at. But up at the chlorine shed now, we have actual fire hydrant up there from the new water system. So we can put a pretty good defense. We've already have a semi-plan of how to defend our water treatment plant up there. That's pretty important to our village. So we could we could lay a fire line all the way down that road. So if fire was coming towards it, we could pretty much surround the tank and the building up there. And but we have to watch our fire all the way up to Allen's Lake, and because fire can cause problems with your water. And so that's another reason we go all the way up to Fourth Dam on the weekends and try and keep an eye on everything. But yeah, I think that's a good idea. And we should work with them a little more, or even the village maybe. I know we don't have that kind of machinery, but it'd be a good idea to do what you're saying. It'd be a great idea.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Michael, for keeping us all safe.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks, Mike.
Next, we have the council received the broadening the scope of the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee.
Oversee.
Seconder? Councillor Sproul, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Brown.
Thank you. So this is coming to you as a request to just broaden. So the committee is currently called the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee, but the terms of reference and the scope of work so far has been mostly about physical disability and accessibility. And given the last, 18 months or more, and the increase in racism, even we spoke about earlier today, and other just inclusive and social equity issues coming up, I wanted to broaden the scope of this committee so that there's a place for those concerns to land, and also there's a sort of a checkpoint for us to make sure that we are doing everything we can to be as inclusive as possible. So happy to hear questions. So we included, we found terms of reference from the city of Nanaimo, who has incorporated this into their accessibility committee. That was the sort of closest example I could find. And so there's that for your information. And then the list of the additional scope, which would be to promote social and political equity. And then the list underneath And included in the request is some money for some kind of public event to do awareness and education around inclusion and social equity.
Any questions from members of council? Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, this is great. I like this a lot. Just wondering if like Nanaimo, we'd have 13 members.
Well, we only have, oh, how many do we have? I think we only have 5 or 6 or so. So we have, so I'm not sure how much we need to move up. I don't know what our total is. Maybe Rachel knows off the top of her head. Oh, no, it's included in here. So no, I don't think we need to go up to 13 members. I mean, if they come in droves, you know, we'll see.
We're not going to say no, maybe, unless the rest
Yeah,
say so.
yeah, exactly.
Cool. Super good to see.
Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I support it. I think that more and more we're looking at social inclusion and social equity and issues like that. It'd be nice to be able to refer things that come to council to the committee for comments and get more input on that. So yeah, I support it. Thank you.
Councillor Sproul, did you have any comments?
Okay, done. Yes, I'm all for more inclusion in your committees. I think that's all for the better. That's what I can say.
I think it's a perfect fit with the committee, and I think it will work out very well. So it doesn't say that we need to do anything, but I would think that we need to make a motion that we approve Accessibility and Inclusion Committee, your report.
Yeah, it's I'm just trying to find it now. I've lost it.
It's not on my blue sheet.
Yeah, requested motions that council approve the incorporation of the above tasks into the scope of work, and that council allocate the $2,500 in the 2022 budget for a public event to promote social equity and inclusion.
So that's your motion?
And that council direct staff to bring forward an amount in the 2022 budget discussions for the development of an accessibility and inclusiveness committee strategy. And that council recruit new members to the Accessibility and Inclusion Committee with a specific invitation to youth, BIPOC, and two-spirited, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, Q2+ residents.
Seconder for the motion?
Yeah.
Second. All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Next is council members' monthly report. It was an extremely busy month for July, and I had many meetings with different organizations and meetings with MLA Josie Osborne on business leaders in Mid-Island Pacific Rim. That was very interesting. They were talking to the businesses in her area about the restart program and what the causes were. And she found it especially interesting to talk about the heat wave and how businesses reacted to the heat wave and how they handled it. And it was really interesting because most of the businesses in Cumberland shut down. And that didn't happen in all areas. And so it was very informal and a good discussion. I was surprised that the Business Association did not attend. They have been invited to it, and I've been told that they will attend the next one. So had a meeting with Jennifer Vigano Director of the Watershed Sustainability, Water Protection and Sustainability Branch, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. And Clayton and Kevin joined me in that meeting. And what it was really interesting because we were the first municipality that they've had a meeting with on the Watershed Strategy Fund that's been announced. And they're going to be talking to other municipalities on what we would need funding from the government for. And we brought up the issue of buying land within our watershed. We also brought up the issue of hiring consultants to evaluate the land and work with the village. So they were really happy to receive that information and look forward to further discussions with them. And in preparation for our meeting, hopefully with the Premier, I was advised to get other mayors on Vancouver Island to join us. And as of today, we have 15 other mayors that will attend to give us support. And one chair of the regional district. Thank you, Councillor Kettler, and one director from the regional district. We only have 20 minutes, so I have a schedule of who's going to be speaking and what topics they will be speaking on. And it all is about private managed forest lands in watersheds and private managed forest lands. That is the topic. So we should be hearing very shortly if we've been successful in getting a meeting. And if not, we'll probably be with the Minister of Environment or Forest. Yes.
Good.
So, and did talk to Lindsay McGinn, the Comox Valley Community Health Network, about the Plan H grant that we applied for and were not able to be successful in. And it was a really good meeting in that they said our application got us to the final stages and we were shortlisted. And they really didn't have anything negative to say about the application other than the fact that we didn't do enough on final outcomes. So this is concerning the drug strategy work that we were going to be doing. But I have since found out that Lindsay has gone to other sources for funding. So we should know in a short while whether we will be successful there. I've had a meeting with the Comox Valley Division of Family Practice Physician Recruitment. Spoke about many of the issues in the Comox Valley. BC does not have enough trained doctors, and they have a long list of communities that do not have doctors. And there's also a shortage of nurse practitioners as well as other healthcare workers. And the minister is working, trying to solve this problem. It's going to take years. It's not something that can be done right away. One of the things that I learned is anybody coming from out of country, they actually have to come to Canada to write the exam. And that can be very costly for an individual. So I talked to Gord Johns about this and said with all the safety nets they have now with meetings and internet, they should be able to have people write tests in their country. So they're looking at those kinds of things. I also had a discussion with Island Health concerning the medical clinic in Cumberland, and another discussion with the owner of the building. So there is various people working on finding us a doctor. Hopefully we'll hear soon. Mm-hmm. They also asked if we would supply a package to attract a doctor from the village. And this, I asked them what kind of package they were talking about. And it actually wouldn't cost the village any money, but it would be a package where we would offer a doctor and his family a day out skiing, or a day out boating on the ocean, or a day fishing. And those are all things that we could look at that we might be able to get from community members. that have those abilities to do those things. So they said it's not, most places they're thought of very kindly because the doctors like those kinds of things. So we'll see if it works or not. Staff is looking at that possibility of putting a package together. And there's lots of things other things that I did. And the one that was really interesting was the meeting with modernizing the forest policy local government engagement sessions. Boy, some of these meetings have really extremely long titles. And I attended this meeting, and the head of Ian Morrison from AVICC was there. Vice President Anne Rottenberg from UBCM was there. Councillor Kettler was there, along with a number of other mayors on Vancouver Island. And we were talking about the 20 policy intentions that they have put forward. And this is a continuation of what we started a number of years ago. And we actually submitted a proposal of what we would like to see happen under this intention paper. And so I actually found it and have given it to Clayton to review the request that we put forward then. And they have actually provided a feedback portal, and staff will be filling out the questionnaire and answering the questions from council of what our priorities are with the private managed forest lands and watershed. So there's a lot of work going on in a lot of different areas concerning watersheds and the protection of watersheds. And then I had a meeting with Josie Osborne, our MLA. She actually came to Cumberland, and I toured her on the village office and all the upgrades that we have made. She met all the staff. She was very complimentary of what we have done in the village office with our funding. And we had an update on all the plans we've got going and the grants that we have also put in to the government. And then she took a tour of the fire hall, and our manager of the fire hall was very nice and took her around, answered all her questions. She was thrilled at being there and seeing the uniqueness and the beauty of our fire hall. And they're in the process of looking at a fire hall themselves for Tofino. And so if there's any other questions, I know it was lengthy, but it was an interesting month. Okay. So next we have Councillor Kettler.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, my report's there if there's any questions. Like the mayor, a lot of what I was doing last month was had to do with watersheds, and I was at the meeting on modernizing forest policy. You can see that the ministry is gearing for change. So we had the PMFL, the Private Managed Forest Land Review 2018. Then we had the coastal sector revitalization review in 2019. Then we had the old growth strategic review in 2020. And so hopefully out of all these things, we're going to see some changes happen in the legislation. They did say there's going to be an opportunity in regards to the private managed forest lands coming up again, basically winter 2021. So by the end of this year, we should have another opportunity. You know, they're saying that the information that they got before from the other review has not been shelved. It's just they're compiling more and more information as they go. So hopefully we're going to see some change with that. At the CVRD board, there was a lot of motions that in regards to watersheds to continue working with Comox First Nation and developing a water management plan for the Solom River watershed advocating with the province for water management tools, to proceed with a watershed stewardship service scoping study. So that's something that we're investigating for improving service delivery at the regional district, to have an actual service that deals with watershed stewardship. So that's something of interest probably. And then reviewing land use planning in regards to the Comox Valley Agricultural Plan. And then talking to the province about Solom River Agricultural Watershed Plan. So that's all very exciting stuff. And then for the Rec Commission, I just wanted to mention that we did pass a tri-party agreement for arena sharing with the Department of Defense, their Glacier Gardens, the CBRD, and the Comox Valley Sport and Social Club. And that's to develop the hockey league. There's a lot of demand for ice time. And so this is an attempt to give more equitably ice time among all the user groups. Oh, okay, I'll just leave it there because my dog.
Okay, Councillor Spruill, did you want to say something verbally? Your mic's off.
Where's your sign, Councillor Brown?
You're still muted.
To say, just busy catching fry and chasing toads and helping at the museum. So that's basically it, trying to help them get their displays back.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, apologies for not getting my, yeah. So all the same things that I normally do, CBA, steering committee meeting, substance use strategy working group. We are now working on a draft, the next draft of the report coming out of the substance use strategy work. And so that hopefully will be coming forward to the committee shortly. I managed to attend the Pride flag raising, I guess it was a sort of a ceremony. It was just me and the mayor and Andrea. And Climate Caucus, recreation communities and rural communities. I also attended the modernizing forest policy engagement session, but not the one you guys were at. And the one I was at seemed to have a lot of the North Island communities participating. So that was very interesting. And Food Policy Council, which at the Municipal and Food Supply Committee, at which the Solom River water supply report came up, and so that's going to come to the full Food Policy Council because there is grave concern around water for agriculture in that watershed. And so, but I did have a question about, and then I attended the info session for the Cumberland Hotel. But when I was attending the modernizing forest policy session, there is an opportunity for us to, do the online input, which is really, really long, I think is the one I looked at. But I wonder if there's a way for us to just specifically speak to preservation of old growth or implementing the old growth strategy, and whether we want to do that in the interim while we wait for the private managed forest consultation, because I think that's all. There are public lands on Vancouver Island that are a lot, I was just on the North Island, and the rate at which that old growth is coming down is quite alarming.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, do we I mean, we have written letters, but I just think it might be more potent coming through that consultation process. Maybe we don't have to answer all the questions.
Yeah, well, I haven't gone through all the questions yet to see what the questions are, but I plan on doing that with Clayton.
Okay,
And
great.
then I will sit down and talk about what we're putting in, because he doesn't have the background on what we did. And so that's why I got the report out that Sundance Toppin had done for us. And actually reminded me a number of things that I hadn't thought of. And so it's good to always go back and see what we asked for.
Okay, and would that include our advocacy for stopping old growth logging?
I think because it was one of the main titles, I think there will be an area in the questionnaire, but I will check on that and get back to you all on it.
Great.
To see if it's in there. Yes, Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, there is like a standard form with all their questions that they want answered, but and old growth is in there. But I think that we could also submit to email them our own comments structured the way we want. But they did talk about that they had given deferrals in Clayoquot, Fairy Creek, and up in Tassis. And so the Fairy Creek one is the 2-year deferral, but I guess it doesn't apply to the broader Walbren area. So there's a deferral right at the Fairy Creek, but I guess adjacent to that, there's logging that's continuing, which is why there's still protesters there. So
yeah, and I think outside of Tassis, there's still a lot of old growth coming down right now.
Yeah,
in anticipation of it being stopped.
Okay, so what we can do is look at the September meeting and have it, if we're going to write a letter, which I think we should, then it would be I'll make sure that it's on the agenda for September the 7th.
Thank you.
great.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
I was lucky to conclude my CVRD board meetings before I left for my vacation in July, so I'm happy to report that I'm home, safe and alive. And I would suggest anybody traveling south of the border to prepare yourselves. for the airport specifically, there's coming into Canada or into the States and into Canada are both trickier than they have been ever before. You just give yourself more time and try to exercise more patience, even though it's difficult at times. Yeah, happy to be back. That's what I got.
There's nothing like home. Okay, can we have a motion to receive the reports?
So
Motion to receive reports.
All
second.
in favor? Carried. Next, bylaws.
Okay, I'll make the motion that council adopt and give final reading to official community plan amendment bylaw number 1149, 2021. And that council adopt and give final reading to zoning amendment bylaw 1150, 2021.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, no new business, notice, motions, and announcements. The Heritage Committee is meeting on August the 16th, 2021 at 5 p.m. And question period. Please send questions by email to info@cumberland.ca using subject line question period. Please note, only questions will be answered.
Oh, Mayor Baird. I do have a correction to the Heritage Committee meeting time. It's actually starting at 5:30 rather than 5 o'clock, as was noted in the agenda. And for questions, we had quite a few. Actually, I believe three questions sent in that were on the the heritage alteration permit for 2714 Dunsmuir. All those three Question sheets were included in the packages, the public submission packages, and planning staff earlier did touch on quite a few of those questions and answered some. The rest, I think, some were quite technical, so planning staff will look at as that the application moves through the referral process. We did have one more come in earlier on the fan house report. And I'll just, oh, I've lost it here. Council did touch on the question, so I'm not quite sure if there will be an answer, but the question is that there has been a consistent complaint on the part of current residents of Cold Valley on speeding cars on Kendall Avenue. How does the creation of the long, smooth descending street over the site of the original fan house address this issue?
And I think we made it very clear that we're not happy with the long streets and that we would like to have something else done. And we'll be waiting till we have our meeting with our lawyer to discuss it in depth of what we can do in next steps. So thank you very much for the email.
And we have a thank you from that resident. And we'll just maybe wait a moment to see if there's any more questions come in.
Okay. And my understanding is we're not going to in camera?
There's no in camera tonight.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
We figured it would
July
be a
12th.
pretty long
Oh,
meeting.
man.
Yeah.
Well, at least I'm way up to snuff on a couple weeks ago. That's hilarious. I should read the date on these things, eh? Yeah. Well, I'm way caught up on 2 weeks ago. Maybe I can talk to one of you guys about it later.
Well, I was actually going to ask if I could talk to you in the next day or two.
Absolutely.
To bring you up to date on a number of things.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Okay.
We do have, this is more a question on procedure, asking that major development applications like the heritage alteration permit don't come through council in the summertime.
Good point.
This one was a recommendation for referral, so it will come back. Planning staff can confirm, but I would think probably later in September. Once it's been through, I think it was referred to 3 committees.
Usually the process is long and lengthy, and hopefully we can look at that. But yeah, there's pressures also with it. It's when staff can get it done, the application in a timely manner. So there's all kinds of things to bring into that and look at. Does anybody else, the manager, want to talk about that, or we fine? Did you hear the question, Courtney?
Yes, thank you. I think to echo your comments, Your Worship, that there's always, sometimes applicants are working with the applicant for weeks or even a couple of months on the complexity of something, and to have to ask them to wait another couple of months if it's ready to go sort of at the end of June, would probably have a negative impact on the development timelines. So it would be a difficult thing to weigh with that request from the community.
Okay, thank you. And that has been brought up before in the past. Yes, and we try lots of times not to let it happen during the summer months, but unfortunately sometimes it has to happen. Okay, anyone else? No. Okay, motion to adjourn.
There's just another submission that has come in earlier tonight. I just found it in my junk folder, but it looks like they're all comments rather than questions. There's no there's a question at the end about what we want for our downtown core in the long term. I think that relates to the visual community plan vision.
the official community plan spells out what we would like to have. But we were going to review the OCP, and because of COVID, we chose not to do that because we want people to come and be part of that process. And it would have been very, very difficult to do that during COVID. So we're looking more at a process. I think we've got, is it next year that we're going to look at it? The OCP, or the year after? I can't remember. Courtney? You're muted.
Thanks. I'm sorry. I think we're looking at sort of the beginning of 2023 for that OCP.
Yes, yes. And it's not the whole OCP, it's just an update of the OCP?
Yes, I believe that's the plan right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor Spruill?
Oh, I was just going to say motion to adjourn.
Absolutely.
I kind of have to go.
Okay, second.
So
All in favor? Carried. Good night,
Have a good
everybody.
evening,
everyone.